to another video, and this is my review of the Huawei P50 Pro. Find out in my full detailed review whether the Huawei P50 Pro stands out with its Android rivals, or whether the lack of Google services puts it in a category of its own. And can it stand out with its unique camera system and its flamboyant design? Well, let's dive into it. So first of all, let's look where I've came from. I've came back from my Huawei Mate 40 Pro, which is filmed near enough every single video you've seen on the channel. And this has set the benchmark for what I determined to be a fantastic smartphone. Of course it has its faults, however the bottom line is this phone has an absolutely fantastic set of cameras, a lovely display and a solid design and build quality. So can the Huawei P50 Pro live up to these ancestors' reputation? So with the design, the screen and the build quality, what do I think of this on the Huawei P50 Pro? Well, for starters, I think the screen is a real highlight on the device, and I must admit I wasn't expecting it to be as night and day compared to my Mate 40 Pro as it actually is. It's a fantastic screen, fairly bright. I would like a bit more brightness as it's not quite as strong as some rivals like the Samsung S22 and some of the Oppo phones. However, the contrast, saturation and the actual tunability of the display is fantastic. As you've seen from the B-roll shots at the start, the highlight of the show is the design of this. I think this looks absolutely fantastic, and it definitely stands out in a world of bland and boring phones that are from the standard manufacturers like Samsung and iPhones today. This is really exquisite design, and it looks fantastic in this gold colour, and I'd highly recommend it. It's not without fault, however. I do have a few criticisms. The starter is for the actual design of this device. They've had to cut down on the battery size, and as we'll get onto later, the battery life of this phone is absolutely abysmal. I mean, I think it's absolutely disgraceful for a flagship in 2021 or 2022, because this phone's been out a long time now. It is appalling, and they really shouldn't have sold it like this. I think it's, really disgraceful, and I'm not happy with it at all. However, the cameras make up for it, but again, we'll come on to that later. My other problem with this phone is the build quality is not quite as good as other Huawei devices. It hasn't quite scratched up yet, but you can see you've got a few little imperfections on the actual backplate of the device, and it doesn't seem quite as polished and up to the usual Huawei quality. And also, I don't know if you can hear this or see this, but the actual buttons have a really annoying rattle to them, and they actually move backwards and forwards and side to side. They feel very nice to use, but you can actually see the gap in those, and I don't think that's acceptable for a phone that still costs £800 in the UK. So the phone features 66 watt fast wired charging and 50 watt wireless charging. However, in 2022 it's not quite as fast as some rivals, and I do find the charge speed of its very small 4360 milliamp battery fairly slow compared to rivals with the same 66 or 65 watt charging. I think this is due to Huawei having to thermal throttle the device, because the device does run hot. Even from light tasks such as photo editing to browsing the web, this device can get extremely hot, and I don't think the heat management on this device is as good as previous Huawei devices. So let's get on to more positive things about the Huawei P50 Pro. I must admit I have really enjoyed EMUI 12 on my Mate 40 Pro, and indeed this Huawei P50 Pro. However, I must say I've actually noticed some nice improvements on the Huawei P50 Pro, especially with its multi-device collaboration. Again, it just seems a bit more slick and a bit more usable, especially with this feature here. So the Device Plus feature seems a bit more tidied up and works a bit more simultaneously than it has done on my previous Huawei device. However, the animations and stuff like that haven't quite been as sharp and as snappy as on my Mate 40 Pro. I feel like it's an update or two away from being a fantastic, reliable and smooth operating system on top of Android 10. So let's get on to what everyone's here for, and the main reason you're looking at the Huawei P50 Pro. So let's look at the camera. So I'm not going through the specs because you've read them all already, or you've seen other YouTubers review these. However, I'm going to talk to you from a photographer's point of view about these cameras, and I will share some samples what I've managed to capture in my fairly short time of owning this device. So let's get the negatives out of the way first. The negatives are the camera app. It's starting to feel a bit old and a bit outdated now. and also not quite as refined as other Huawei devices. It's actually missing a lot of features, especially at the top. If you see here, you're missing loads of video options that you did get on the Huawei Mate 40 Pro, and it made it much more versatile. So there's no ultra steady mode, and there is no tracking object mode, which you don't have, unfortunately. And again, if you go to more as well, you can see you're missing the underwater mode that you used to get on Huawei devices, and a few other little bits here and there. And again, there's nothing new now. They just stopped innovating with their modes, their features. It feels like they've hit a brick wall and they can't get over it. And it's really disappointing and really sad to see, because they can do so much better in the camera department than what they have done with this phone. That's not to say they're bad cameras, but they could be much better and they could be much more well managed in terms of software. And again, while we're zooming in as well, this zoom slider really doesn't work very well. How they've done it, I don't like it. It's close to the buttons at the bottom, so when you're trying to zoom when you're outside, you can get it caught up. And it's quite janky, as you can see here. It's not very smooth, it's quite a janky zoom. And we have constant issues with exposure when you're zooming in and out. And you can really see it as you zoom in and out here. Massive problems with exposure on this device, and I've noticed this on several occasions, even when trying to take photos. Sure, this camera isn't perfect. However, there's a lot to like here, so let's get on to why I love the camera on this device. So again, you've got a monochrome camera, which isn't just a gimmick. You actually get some really stylistic and really fantastically detailed and well managed photos from this device. Something you just can't get on anything else. The contrast, the depth of the black, and the way they integrate the monochrome mode into the actual camera app is so nice to see. I'll overlay some images that I've shot on this device so you can make your own minds up. But again, contrast is fantastic, shadows are handled really well. Sometimes can be slightly overexposed with a blue tint. However, this can be corrected in an editing software because the detail's still there and the clarity is fantastic. Periscope lens, on the other hand, again, another highlight of the device. Really sharp, really steady, very easy to use, up to about 20 times zoom. After that, the quality does become less usable. And another pick I must admit I am very impressed with is the video on this device. Sure, it lacks the features of other devices, but the standalone video on this device is fantastic. It's super steady, super clear audio, very well in terms of colour reproduction across all three lenses, and the overall effect is fantastic in terms of video. So again, my trusty old Mate 40 Pro has filmed its last ever video on the channel, and now it's going to be departing. So this is basically been filmed on my Mate 40 Pro, so you can compare the sample from this and also from the Huawei P50 Pro, which you'll see in the video. So let me know what you think's better in terms of picture quality and audio quality. They are both filmed in 4K, and they are both not using external microphones, but only using the microphones on the phone. But in a nutshell, that's Huawei P50 Pro, almost outstanding, but lacking in a few areas. Would I recommend the device? If you're a Huawei fan, you're already invested in that ecosystem, and you want a phone with some of the best cameras on the market, then go for it. However, it does come at a price of extremely poor battery life, not the build quality we expect from Huawei, and again, there's lack of Google services. However, make your own mind up. Thanks for watching, please like, subscribe and comment below.